Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
That was Bessie Griffin with Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child. Welcome to the Rise Weekly Review for November 9th through November 15, 2020. A Whiting teen who was shot on Saturday the 8th died of his injuries on Tuesday. 16-year-old Jacob Zavala was found with a gunshot wound to the head on the 1300 block of West Fred Street. He was taken to St. Catherine in East Chicago, but later moved to the University of Chicago Medical Center. Police are not disclosing additional details on the incident and would not state whether the incident was a homicide or accidental shooting. Jacob was an active sophomore at Whiting High School. His family has set up a GoFundMe called Hope for Jacob for those wishing to donate to the services. The link is at the right hand of the screen. Anyone with additional information is asked to contact Detective Lieutenant Jeff Allard at 219-659-2186. A 73-year-old man was rescued after his car ended up in a Hegwish pond on Thursday night. On the 12th, around 8:20 p.m., the CPD Marine Unit responded to a report of a vehicle in a pond located near 134th by the Hegwish Trailer Parks towards Boy Scout Road. The man was rescued from the vehicle and was transported to the University of Chicago Medical Center. However, he was last reported in critical condition. A massive fire erupted at a warehouse on the east side near the East Side Plaza on Wednesday evening. Firefighters were called to the scene before 10 p.m. to a building located on 119th and Avenue O. Huge flames and thick smoke could be seen from miles away. The Chicago Fire Department was able to control the blaze by around 11 p.m. No injuries were reported. The warehouse is reported to belong to Ira Valdivia Contractors Incorporated. The company is a paint wall covering and protective coating contractor. Another incident on the east side occurred on Tuesday in which several vehicles were set on fire. This incident involved a suspected arson attack. Chicago police reported between 6 to 8 vehicles were set ablaze by someone with an incendiary device just after 3 a.m. The attack occurred at a shop located at 99th and Avenue L. No one was reported injured. Chicago police are currently investigating the incident, however, no reports were issued of any arrests. A Chicago Lyft driver was speaking up after being carjacked by riders he picked up in South Shore during the week. The driver picked up the pair on 71st and Ridgeland when the door was shut and a passenger held a gun to his head. He was ordered to drive and hand over his wallet and phone. The driver complied with the orders and was able to escape without injury. The driver reported irregular activities on his cell phone following the incident. No further information was provided on whether the assailants were apprehended or not. On Friday, the Green Card veterans participated in a summit along with U.S. Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth about the plight of immigrant veterans facing deportation. The group discussed issues related to the challenges facing deported U.S. veterans. Former Southeast Side resident and community activist Carlos Luna, along with U.S. Army war veteran and Chicago resident Miguel Perez, participated in the event.
But once I got deported, I had no access to anything with the VA. I was left alone with 13 days of my prescription. They gave me 13 days full of my medicine and just dropped me off in the border and have a good life. And there was no way for me to get the medicine or any medical services through the VA. Luckily, we found there's a Dr. Rudy Melson that deals with the benefits, and he travels around the world helping some of the deported veterans and all veterans alike. But it was thanks to him and to Carlos Luna, they kept advocating for me here, also with Senator Tammy Duckworth, my church, my people, Fortunately, I come from Chicago, where my church and my fellow veterans were able to help my family, and I accessed some of the things that I needed to keep me afloat. But as far as other veterans in Tijuana, there were many of them. They had the same experiences as me up to getting deported, but they did not have, like I said, the Pastor Emmas, the attorney Chris Bergen, Green Card veterans, Carlos, Senator Tammy Duckworth at the time. So I was lucky enough to get that type of support. But as far as dealing with anything health, no, not at all. And it was horrific just to be left like that.
Perez is a former U.S. Army veteran who served with the Special Forces Unit in Afghanistan. Perez was brought to the U.S. undocumented as a young child and raised in the U.S. Upon his departure from the military, he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Following his release, he was later arrested on a drug conviction charge, and after serving his prison sentence, he was deported to Mexico upon his release. Groups fought to aid Perez, who received clemency by Governor Pritzker and was allowed to return to the U.S., where he eventually earned his citizenship. While Perez was freed, a large number of U.S. veterans like Perez are also facing similar challenges. Due to the secrecy of immigrant and customs enforcement, however, the actual number of U.S. veterans deported annually still remains a mystery. However, that number is suspected to have increased under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policies. For those interested, video of the event can be found on the Rise YouTube channel. In other news, on Saturday, a federal judge has ruled that the acting head of the Department of Homeland Security, appointed by the Trump administration, was illegally appointed. Chad Wolf was appointed by the Trump administration to act as Chief of Homeland Security, despite a lack of a Senate confirmation. Chad Wolf had raised a lot of concerns over many of his controversial policies. Despite the U.S. Supreme Court ruling against the Trump administration and its attempts to shut down the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, Wolf had suspended the program on July 28th. The federal court's ruling states that Wolf acted unlawfully in his role with DHS and ultimately invalidated his suspension of DACA. The orders issued by Wolf attempted to prevent recent DACA applicants and those seeking renewal from being processed. Several immigrant rights groups and activists hailed the decision as a victory. Many are still fighting other court cases against the Trump administration's policies against DACA and other immigrant programs. Groups organized by the Bridges Puentes Collective and local environmental groups had a rally on Saturday in front of Mayor Lori Lightfoot's home. The groups have called upon Lightfoot and 10th Ward Alderwoman Susan Sadlowski Garza to stop the approval of the final permit for the Reserve Management Group expansion on the east side.
The question is not whether we deserve better. It isn't a question because the answer is yes, we deserve better. And it is time the city recognizes its failures. An apology from the city is overdue. This trauma and impact on our health spans generations, and it is irreversible damage. We don't want a new and improved General Iron. We don't want some trees that attempt to beautify the ugly, which the city has spread throughout Black and brown communities. You cannot beautify what is killing us. General Iron and companies before are the cause of our death.
That we still, in today, 2020, the vision is not for us to be continued polluted on the south side of Chicago, and particularly on the southeast side of Chicago. This is classical environmental racism, and you can't call it no different than that.
Español, porque este es un asunto que nos impacta mucho en el sureste, ¿no? Somos una comunidad negra, una comunidad latina, una comunidad mixta, en realidad, en una ciudad tan segregada, y se nos hace indignante, en realidad, que una alcaldesa que dice representar al pueblo, representar a nosotros, no nos escucha.
Chicago public health officials claimed in October that RMG still had not filed its full application for its final permit. Groups are attempting to stop the permit from being confirmed once the application is received. The groups protested what they consider environmental racism and a movement of the facilities from Lincoln Park to the east side, following the purchase of General Iron by RMG. RMG has operated a similar metal scrapper in the area for years, however, it is currently undergoing an expansion to integrate the Northside Company into its site following the acquisition. The company has acquired the majority of the permits needed for its operation, including several at the state level. This has presented challenges for groups who are now acting to try to prevent the final permit from being issued. Local activists and groups have raised concerns because of the additional pollution that would come from the site that is located within a few blocks of George Washington High School and George Washington Elementary School. The school and area has a history of being impacted by polluters that could potentially pose health risks. Prior to its purchase, General Iron had been cited for a number of pollution and nuisance law violations. Yet, even following the purchase, the company has still managed to acquire over 11 violations at its Lincoln Park facility. On Monday, a fire broke out at the company's Lincoln Park facility. The fire followed the company's $18,000 settlement over an explosion that occurred at the site in May. The fire at the site began with some debris in the front yard, and fire officials claim that it did not appear to be equipment related. RMG claims that the metal shredder was not in operation during the time of the fire. A fire department spokesman stated there were no injuries, nor any toxic materials that were detected during the fire. The rally against the company took a political turn with presentations by 25th Ward Alderman and Democratic Socialist Byron Lopez. A former 10th Ward political candidate with ties to Byron's Democratic Socialist of America organization and the International Socialist Organization has also been heavily involved in the actions. The International Socialist Organization, from which this candidate was involved, or ISO, was recently disbanded following allegations of corruption, with many of its members fleeing the fallout to join the Democratic Socialists of America. Some suggested groups are involved with the General Iron issue to push a future 10th Ward Aldermanic campaign. While the 10th Ward Alderwoman has previously claimed not to support the expansion of the RMG facilities, which allegedly began during the Emanuel administration, groups have accused her of complacency in its development and have called for her to take more stronger actions against the permit. The Alderwoman, in return, has distributed a list of meetings with environmental groups that were led by the former political candidate with ties to the Democratic Socialists of America around General Iron. However, the likelihood of further actions from the Alderwoman may be complicated as groups tied to the former candidate have named her in a federal civil rights complaint with the offices of Housing and Urban Development, and her actions around the move are now considered part of a federal investigation. The HUD complaint accuses the Alderwoman and the city, including Mayor Lightfoot, of environmental racism by allowing RMG to expand its operations. A separate lawsuit, also filed, that did not name the local alderwoman, but names the city along with other aldermen tied to the permitting process and zoning laws, was also filed. This lawsuit was also filed by groups associated with another former 10th Ward Aldermanic candidate. The groups include several religious organizations, and the complaints were filed in a federal court. Neither of the complaints name RMG. Despite losing to Joe Biden in the U.S. election, Donald Trump still has refused to concede the election. During the week, Trump seemed to acknowledge that Biden has won in several of his tweets. However, he later backtracked on the tweets and continues to spread conspiracies over election fraud. Some U.S. moderates have been claiming that Trump has been extending his campaign in order to fund some of his campaign and personal debts. Trump was reported to have close to $1 billion in personal debt that is set to be due in the next several years. Supporters of U.S. President Donald Trump held a rally over the weekend in Washington, D.C. The rally, dubbed the MAGA March, brought Trump supporters who claimed the election was stolen from across the country. Despite the name, the rally seemed to only consist of several thousand supporters. Radical groups and conspiracy theorists such as Alex Jones joined the event. Our militants, such as the Three Percenters, and groups with white nationalist ties, such as the Proud Boys, were said to have a large presence. Many of the groups initially claimed they had no racist affiliations, and some even used spokespeople of color. However, following the loss of Donald Trump, many of the groups have begun suggesting their attempts to rebrand themselves failed and are reverting to their original white supremacist nationalist rhetoric. The election has caused splits within the group, with some which have been trying to rebrand their groups with more moderate messages, fighting against others who have decided to revert to their original cause for white nationalism and other rhetoric that is considered racist. The rally ended with violence as Trump supporters eventually clashed with counter-protesters during the evening. On Saturday, the Calumet Area Industrial Commission and several other groups held a webinar about local apprenticeship programs. The webinar discussed different types of programs available and existing opportunities and programs for those seeking apprenticeships in local industries. For those interested in learning more, we suggest you visit the Calumet Area Industrial Commission website, or you can watch the video of the webinar, which is available on the RISE YouTube channel. New life is being breathed into the area that once housed the old state line power generating plant. The old power plant was once one of the area's most heaviest polluters and was shut down in 2012. The site has undergone years of cleaning, redevelopment, and demolishing, and now a new $40 million, 105,000 square foot building was constructed on the site. The new building is supposed to serve as a data warehouse for companies. The development is part of what is considered by developers a phase 1 of a development project meant to attract high-tech companies to Northwest Indiana. The building is built near the shoreline to make use of lake water for cooling. Many tech industries rely on water cooling and other methods in order to try to decrease the heat generated from their servers and keep them cool. And this ends up in a very big expense for a lot of the companies. The facility provides additional underground fiber optic cabling to connect the site to downtown Chicago. On Saturday, the Chicago Police Department and U.S. Representative Robin Kelly were in South Chicago to distribute free turkeys and side dishes to residents. The event was held near the border of South Shore and South Chicago on 79th as part of the Black McDonald's Operators Association annual holiday giveaway. The 10th Ward Alderwoman has announced a new park and nature space development in Slag Valley. Construction has begun on Park 538 in Slag. The park is set to be developed on an empty lot in Slag Valley located at 101st and South Exchange. Finally, a reminder for anybody hoping to still benefit from the U.S. government economic stimulus passed during the summer. The final day for filing claims is November 21st. You can still file requests for payment if you did not file a 2019 federal tax return, receive a payment, or have registered previously for the stimulus. Details can be found at the following IRS URL or by searching for IRS stimulus. Thank you for joining us for this week in review. Peace.
Like a motherless child.